All right, I'm here with Lee Goldberg. Lee, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir, Randy. I appreciate you having me, man.
Most of the people that would be watching or listening to this will know you from TV. I certainly do. It's been probably 25 years since I've seen you back in the day when I played football, watching the fifth quarter. How long have you been on TV nowadays?
I mean, this is going to surprise a lot of people because I'm only 23. Do I look okay? I got my first job in Clarksburg, West Virginia. And I'll apologize to everybody who's watching. There's going to be a lot of movement going on for this. I got kids, I got dogs, I got cats, it's insane. It's like a freaking zoo here. January 1991 in Clarksburg, West Virginia for $12,000 a year. So it's been 31 years, it'll be 32 years next month.
How long did you spend out there?
I was in West Virginia I got there in January 91 and I left in April 93. So just over 2 years.
2 years. But you're a Deering guy, correct?
I am, yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
So did an opportunity arise in Maine and you just had to jump on it to get back, or did you always see yourself moving back to Maine?
Yeah, both of those things happened. So, in the television business and specifically for sports, which is, what I did for so long, the opportunities are few and far between. Everybody wants to do it, and there aren't a lot of opportunities to do so. So if you look at any general newsroom, you got a lot of people who do news, right? A lot of reporters, you got a lot of news anchors, you got a lot of people who do weather, and you generally only have one person who does sports. Back in the day when local sports was a little bit busier than it is now, as far as the relevance that the companies had in it, there was a level of importance where sometimes you have 2, 3, 4 people that were in the local sports department, but there was only a couple. There was always more news and weather than there were sports people. So the openings didn't happen as frequently, and everybody wants to do sports. How do you not want to get paid to go to games for a living, right? So to find those opportunities, if you're committed to the job and it's something you really just want to do more than anything, which is what I wanted, you take whatever jobs are available to you. And I applied, Randy, to jobs in towns I'd never heard of before. You got to remember, this is before the internet too, so there was no jumping online to see what the openings were. These were cold calls.
Like newspapers?
Yeah, and I had these videotapes that I made, and I would physically mail a videotape of myself, and then the news directors would watch them wherever they were, and I didn't even get feedback. I just got "Dear applicant." I'm like, my name is Lee. I got 3 letters and 2 are the same. Couldn't even get a "Dear Lee." I was getting "Dear applicant." It took me a really long time to find a job, to the point where I almost decided to just give up my dream and do something else instead. And on my demo reel, there was me interviewing Michael Jordan was part of my demo reel. I thought I had a killer reel. I was ready to go.
Like actually interviewing?
Yes, sir.
Michael
Yeah,
Jordan.
I did an internship at WMUR in Manchester, New Hampshire, and I got to cover sports for the sports director. It was my job to go out and gather the sound and the videos they needed for their sportscast. And one thing I got sent to cover was a Celtics-Bulls playoff game with Larry Bird on one side and Michael Jordan on the other. And so there I am, 20 years old, in a Bulls locker room interviewing Michael Jordan. And that was on my reel. I'm like, I'll get hired, no problem. And I didn't work that way. It took about 10 months from when I graduated college till I got my first job.
So you knew early on, though, that you wanted to be
from high school. Yeah.
Okay. What about it was, what drew you to it? Just being in front of the camera always?
Yeah. I mean, this might surprise you, but I'm not bashful. I never been one of those people who didn't like talking in front of people. I was told at a very early age my mouth was either going to get me in trouble or it was going to get me a job. It's done both. I think I really actually started off. I really wanted to be a disc jockey before TV. The ICT came later. I wanted to work for Q97.9 and do weddings and bar mitzvahs and play songs on Q97.9 when I was growing up. That's what I wanted to do. I DJ'd the dances at Deering because that's what I had I had my own stuff.
As a
student. Yeah, I had 2 record players and speakers and all the records myself, and I brought my own stuff to everywhere I went, and a microphone, and that's what I was going to do. And it kind of fell into TV once I got into college. So
you ended up back in Portland, and you were doing sports, and you did sports for a long time.
20 years, yes, right? Sir. Yeah.
So that's what I think of you as a sports reporter, fifth quarter, like I might have mentioned in an email to you. I remember back in the day playing football at Biddeford. Big deal for us would be play games on Friday night, go to someone's house, wait till the 11 o'clock news, fifth quarter comes out, you and Bruce. That was a big deal at the time, right? So you did that for a while.
Yeah, so when I was in West Virginia, I got really exposed to the power of high school sports. When I was working out there, I covered Randy Moss when he was in high school. He was a better basketball player than he was a football player. But he was a god at both. So the way that the towns would rally around him and shut down, and everybody would talk about the game that week at that high school. When I got to Maine, I said, okay, what do we do for a high school football show? And they said, well, we don't have a high school. I said, okay, what do the other stations do? And the answer was that they don't do one. I said, well, we're going to do a high school football show, and we're going to call it the fifth quarter. So funny story about the fifth quarter is that Bangor was doing its own newscast. So when I called Channel 6 and I said, hey, we're going to run this high school football show up here. We're going to call it the fifth quarter. Do you want it? And we can run it statewide. I was told by the Portland station, we don't need that. No one's going to watch it. And I said, okay. Yeah. So we did it. No problem. We did it by ourselves up in Bangor only for year one. Well, it took off. Viewers loved it. Fans loved it. Advertisers loved it. And once they saw there was a way to monetize that, then the next year, Portland calls and go, hey, tell us about that fifth quarter show. We want it down here. I go, oh, do you really? I had a feeling you might. So the year one was actually not statewide. We were the first and only high school football show in the state. Then we did it for high school basketball. We did auto racing. We called it the fifth gear. We had fifth lane for track. We really put that brand on everything. And it became the place to go to watch high school sports. And like you said, it was appointment television. You had to go home, 11 o'clock news, find out how your team did, find out how the other teams did, and see yourself on TV or see your kids on TV. That's what it was about.
See if you made the highlights. Yeah. It was definitely a big ritual for us. How long did that last for? Obviously, once you graduate high school, you move away, go to college, and you kind of lose track of it.
We stopped doing the fifth quarter in probably 16 or 17.
Oh, wow. So I would have, not knowing anything, I would have guessed you stopped doing it way longer ago than that. So that's not that.
No, we did it all the way through. The internet really, is a curse and a blessing. So, like you mentioned, you used to have to go home to watch 11 o'clock news and see how you and your other teams in the division or whatever did, right? So the internet kind of changed that. So now, if you want to know how a team did, you can grab your phone, you can see the highlights, you can see the scores. You already know how your team did at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. You don't have to wait till the 11 o'clock news anymore to see that. So the relevance of our show having to be watched because it's the only way you know kind of got diminished and watered down where people could get that product somewhere else, and we weren't getting as much of that as we were hoping. And company-wide, which I vehemently disagreed with, oh, by the way, company-wide, they did some research saying that local sports just wasn't as much of a draw as it used to be, so therefore they were going to put less resources into it, and therefore they wanted to change the way that we did it. Now, at that point, I had spent 26 years building something from the ground up, our brand of local sports and covering high schools and colleges and really only focusing on the stuff in our own backyard. They wanted to change that. I didn't want that. Yeah. So when they said we're going to change it, I said, well, I don't really want to change it. If we're not going to do it the way I built it, what else is out there for me? And they said, well, maybe you could try news, see what it would look like over at news. I'm like, let's try news. And Randy, to be honest with you, at that point too, I've been to 7 Super Bowls. I've been to 3 World Series. I've been in the Frozen Four 4 times. I've covered 100,000 high school games, state championships. I didn't think there was much left for me to do in that regard. And because of the internet, I was working 7 days a week. So even though my schedule was Monday through Friday, if there was a big game on Saturday or Sunday, which is when most sports happen, my followers, if you will, were counting on me for the information. So here I am on a Saturday trying to be with my kids, and I've got to tweet out the scores, and I've got to tell you who won the Battle of the Bridge between Bedford and TA. And I was always on because sports happen on the weekends, now, even though I was off on weekends. So it just became consuming, and I was missing a lot of stuff with my kids. I'm like, this is a lot. And then it all just kind of timed out right. And then they also said news pays more than sports. Like, well, I love news. Let's do news. So
always wanted to do news.
Boy, have I told you how much I love news? Which is ironic.
Do they even have dedicated sports people on the station nowadays?
No. So we were a 4-person department when I was there. Channel 8 had 2 people. Channel 13 had 2 people.
And they still do have people. Right?
And Channel 8 has 1 and Channel 13.
So it's just the way the business has moved over.
It's just shifted, and I'm happy and blessed that I was able to shift and stay at my station and the place that I always wanted to be. Channel 6 was my ESPN. That's the only place I ever wanted to go. So as a kid, my goal was someday to work for Channel 6. Never anything more than that. And as soon as I got there, I'm like, this is the best, and I'm just very lucky to be able to do it.
What a period of time to be involved in the sports department, though, right? With all the high school sports was obviously great, but then you had the Red Sox runs, the Pats runs. If you've been to 7 Super Bowls, what a great time to be covering the local sports.
Yeah, from 93 to 2001, I never went to Westbrook. There was nowhere to go. The team sucked everywhere. You went to high school games, and that was it, and I was fine with that. I didn't care if I was ever going to go anywhere else. But then all of a sudden, 01, Patriots get good. Next thing you know, I'm going to a Super Bowl. I can't believe this is unbelievable. And then all of a sudden, then just they took off. The Red Sox took off shortly after that. Went to an NBA Finals. Went to 2 Stanley Cup Finals. Like, everybody got good from like 01 to 2020, and it was insane.
So it was a good run. Yeah, I think you might have put something on social media the other day. I think one of your favorite Pat Callahan stories was being up in the booth with him. And you guys, it struck me because I didn't really think of anything of it at the time, but you said you couldn't cheer for anyone when you're in that booth. And you grabbed his leg when I think was it the past one Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was when Malcolm Butler. So yeah.
You're right. It was that one.
So when you cover these games, you are a member of the press, and it is strictly written on your credential because we don't pay for tickets. We get free passes to these games, credentials, but on your credential, it's strictly written: no cheering, no autographs, no pictures. Like, you can't go up to Tom Brady and take a selfie with him. Like, you're working, and you are supposed to be right down the middle and neutral as far as the results of that game. So. And that's hard to do. First of all, it's a sport. Second of all, these are my teams. Like, I'm working in my area, in my hometown. Like, when my teams win, I want to cheer because I grew up watching these guys, especially with the Red Sox. I waited 86 years before in St. Louis, and I want to cry. I want to jump up and down and scream, but I've got to get to work because we're going to be on the news in a little bit. And so with the Super Bowl, and at that point, Pat had never been to one before, and that was probably my 6th Super Bowl at that point. And so Pat is right next to me in the press box, and we were sitting right above the end zone where that Malcolm Butler interception happened. So when he intercepted, I grabbed my hand and I slammed it down on Pat's thigh, and I'm like squeezing his thigh, and I'm like, oh my God, and he's, because the plate's going nuts, and he's like, I know, I can't believe it was, I know, but you have to kind of tone it down. So that poor dude had a handprint for days. Like,
well, I mean, at that point, that was probably the biggest Super Bowl moment in the history of the Super Bowl, right? Obviously the best defensive play in the Super Bowl history, but like, just as far as like a consequential play, it was just moment, so.
And we don't have to go too deep in the weeds on that game, but Arizona is also the place where I watched the Patriots lose to the Giants their undefeated season, and things were happening in that Seattle game very much like that Giants game. I'm like, is this going to happen again? Are we going to lose again in this building? Remember, Seattle had some crazy catches on that last drive.
Wow. Tyler Lockett had one on the sidelines.
It was nothing against helmet with one hand, but it was a similar stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, it's going to happen again. We're going to lose again in this building to a team that we should beat. This is insane. It's going to happen again. So the interception was pretty.
I don't want to talk too much Super Bowls, but were you at the next one?
So then the Atlanta
one,
yeah. That was my last one, yeah. And that was also fun because of the main connection there with Sarah Marshall, who is married to Matt Ryan. Sarah Marshall.
That's right.
Great basketball player, went to Macaulay, and this is when Macaulay wasn't very good. They just started to get good. So, and I've been in touch with her and her family for years and years, and we did a lot of Sarah Marshall, Matt Ryan stuff that week just to kind of bring Mainers to the Super Bowl. So at halftime, I'm blowing up her phone. I'm like, because covering a team when they lose sucks because nobody wants to talk. And luckily they had won. All these teams that I covered would win a lot, so it was easy to cover a team that wins because everybody's happy. So, but I'm texting everybody. What am I going to do if this game's over? I'm like, all right, hey, after this game is over, I'll meet you here. You're going to go live with us during the newscast. She's like, yeah, absolutely, I got you. I'm like, cool. And then obviously what happened in the second half happened, and then I texted her.
Did you not?
No, I texted her at the end. I go, hey, I'm not going to need you, but I really appreciate you. Have a great holiday. Like, bye. So sorry for what just happened.
That's a good last Super Bowl to see. Man, I'm bummed that I look in hindsight. I'm like, I should have got tickets to that game. I wanted to. You don't know when it's going to be Brady's last one, and man, what a game. At the same time, though, I could have seen sitting in my seats at halftime, being like, I cannot believe the amount of money I probably spent on these tickets, and this is the worst game I've ever seen. But
as somebody who got free tickets to every event for 26 years. I will tell you this. If I ever had to pay for an event, I would pay for the Super Bowl. And the game, yes, but not so much the game as even I would just go to the city where the Super Bowl is, if you're a football fan of any kind, and just hang out there for the week, which a lot of people do. And a lot of people leave on Friday. They'll go to the Super Bowl city on Tuesday. They'll go back home on Friday before the game even happens. They just want to be around like-minded people. It's a celebration of football for the week. The NFL does a great job marketing their product and giving fans something to do the entire week of the Super Bowl in that host city. And that's worth going to, even if you don't even stay for the game. Then you just go game on TV where you get clean bathrooms, cheap food, and replays. Which you don't get in person. So I highly recommend, if you can do it, go to a Super Bowl city one time, be there for the week, and take it all in. It's amazing.
The only thing that bums me out is that probably won't see Brady in it again, and that's the one thing that, like, if I could have lined up seeing a Super Bowl and Tom Brady and the Pats being in it, but hey, maybe he's coming back next year. You hear some rumors out there.
Well, do you have time for a quick Brady story?
Oh, I do. I love a Brady story.
And I'll go as fast as I can. The quarterback in the NFL gets his own press conference day, right? So every player in the locker room is generally available to you every single day from this time to this time, except the quarterback. The quarterback has a dedicated day. Quarterbacks will talk whatever, Wednesdays, 1 o'clock in the conference room. It's at a podium. Everybody sits in the seats, and it's very controlled, and that's how it is, okay? So it's kind of a rite of passage when you get that. So Bledsoe gets hurt. It's Brady's turn. He's the starting quarterback now. So his press conference will be on whatever, this day at this time. And I remember him saying, not to me, but him saying to the organization, I'm not having my own press conference day. I'm not different than anybody else in this locker room. Just because I'm the quarterback, I'll do my press conference availability like I always do in front of my locker, whenever people need me. And I remember thinking, that's an unbelievable selfless gesture from a kid, especially in the day where most athletes get the rap of they only care about themselves and they're in it to get the endorsements and they want to be the man and they want to get that spotlight for themselves. And here's a guy who has the opportunity to do that, and it's earned and it's rightfully his. And his initial instinct is to not do that and to stay with his teammates. So the very first press conference I remember was in front of his locker. Well, there had to be 200 people there, spilled out into everybody else's locker, which is annoying the entire locker room and really didn't work. So discretion, the better part of valor, he did that once and they said, okay, you can't do that anymore because it's messing up our entire locker room. But the fact that was his initial thought was like, I like this guy. Like, this guy's different. He's got something in his brain that's just a little different. I'm very much more team oriented than what we're used to seeing. And certainly that played out through the next 20 years of success. That's just kind of the person he was and leader he was, that he was not an I guy. He was a me guy. He was a team guy all the way.
Well, you remember in that first Super Bowl, the Patriots ran out as a team when they were introduced. I don't know if you remember. I'm sure everyone seems to remember that. They made a big deal of it at the time because before that, everyone had been introduced individually, and that was the first time that a team ran out as a team. And I think that's probably what they've done every time since then, and a lot of teams have followed suit. So it starts with a guy like Brady, and it's just, like you said, 20 years that followed, it's been all about.
Yeah, it had never been done before. And you remember that year, and one of the questions that I get the most is, over all these years, the greatest things that I ever covered. So one of them is that Super Bowl. And
that first Super Bowl.
Rams. It was as much because the Patriots had never won before as it was the magnitude of that event, because that was the year 9/11. And that was the year that there was supposed to be a 2-week gap before the Super Bowl. There was only a 1-week gap where the Patriots came out as a team, where the nation rallied around this underdog team, at the time biggest underdog in the history of Super Bowls, to have this David Goliath moment and have David be the winner. I mean, America loved the Patriots. They wanted this little team that could to knock off the mighty Rams, and so it transcended sports. And then U2 at halftime, scrolling the.
I was just going to say, at halftime, Bono having he lifts up his jacket, he has the American flag on the inside. I get chills just.
It was just a different feeling. Awesome. It wasn't just about sports. It was a moment that was bigger than that. It was about our country and about what we were all going through, and about that, a team that sticks together can persevere and really do anything. And so, they won a game, but it seemed to be much more than that. I'm not, and I don't want to make it sound like, it was spiritual, but I mean, it was just different. So it was different than I went to, and then obviously the way it ended and the way that game happened, that was pretty cool. So.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So awesome run of sports coverage. I feel like I could tell stories with you all day long. So that might be another pod at a later date. So 2017, you switched to news. Big switch. If I remember correctly, did you do the 5 o'clock hour? Right, because you did like an earlier time, right? Before you.
So here's the thing about. The reason I did sports was I didn't want to do news. I don't have that personality where I felt super comfortable talking about kids got sick or there was a fire or somebody died, or like, I'm not a bad news guy. I'm the guy, you watch the news and the news is depressing for the first 15, 20 minutes. And whether a person comes on and they tell you it's going to rain or snow or sleet or hail or whatever. And then it's time for sports. So we just spent 25 minutes depressing you. Here's Lee. So I always took that job very seriously of trying to make people smile, and the newscast was something a little lighter. My life was wins and losses. A team either won or they lost, so we can have some fun with that, because at the end of the day, it's going to be okay. Somebody won a game or they lost a game. So switching to news was not something I took lightly, because it really wasn't in my personality to do that. I don't consider myself a news person who's ready to do that. So when we started talking about making this switch and transition, we talked a lot about it. It wasn't very simple where I just said, hey, I'm going to do news now. It had to be the right show. So they decided to create a new show at 5:00 for me and for the rest of our team. And we built a team that was light and a little less serious. And we were live on Facebook, which had never been done before. And we were live on YouTube, which had never been done before at the time. So you could watch our news on Facebook live. And then during the commercials, when the viewers at home would watch commercials, we stayed live on Facebook and talked to the viewers like I'm talking to you. So there's, hey, in that segment, what happened on that story, or what's coming up next? Or if we screwed up in the background, you'd see it off air because we gave you a real look behind the scenes. And so that show appealed to me more than a regular news show. So yeah, that's when I first started to news, did that for a couple of years. And then the gods aligned, and there was going to be an opening on the morning report, and the morning show is a very good landing spot for a sports guy because it's super light and it's personality driven. And then Todd and Sharon were there, Todd Guttner and Sharon Rose, and Todd and I did weekends together years ago for about 6 years. And so he's my little brother. So being able to reunite with him was easy. And Sharon and I worked together. Sharon was on TV after I was on TV. She came to Bangor. She worked behind the scenes before she got on TV. So we worked together back in 93 up in Bangor. So I knew her for 20 plus years. And I'm like, hold on, I'm going to get to work with those two. Yeah, I'm in for that. And that's been an absolute blast.
So what's that day look like? Are you getting there at what? 4:30, 5 a.m.? I mean, I forget. You guys
I
go
would
on
love
at 6,
to.
right?
Okay, so thanks for watching. No, my show starts at 4:30, so I am out. I'm out the door at 2:30 every morning. So the alarm goes off. It's pretty early. I get out the door about 2:30.
I feel silly for saying 5 a.m. now. That's laughable.
So we start at 4:30. So I'm on from 4:30 to 7 today, 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So
what am I talking about, right? Because when the Today Show comes on, that's it for you guys. Does the news still, weather? Is weather the one thing that kind of breaks into that?
No, we do cut-ins until 9. So the full newscast ends at 7, but then we do cut-ins every 25 minutes where you get a quick news and weather update for a minute and a half, and that happens between 7 and 9 o'clock.
So how does that schedule work with the family? Is that better for family stuff?
Much better. So think of it this way. So when I was working sports, first of all, I worked 3 to midnight. I was on night shift for 26 years. So the kids are in school until 3 o'clock. I go to work at 3 o'clock. And during
missing bedtimes, missing dinners, missing all that stuff.
And I literally would not see my children until the weekend because I don't get to come home for dinner between shows either. So at 6:30, instead of coming home for dinner before the 11 o'clock news, I'm driving to Waterhouse, or I'm going to a gym, or I'm going to a different field, or I'm going to lots of different gyms and fields. So there's no break where I get to see my kids. That was not, it was great for sports, but it wasn't great for kids stuff. So then when I switched over to news, now I'm gone all day. So now I'm gone from 8:30 in the morning and working like a 9 to 5. Cause it's more like an 8:30 to 6:30. So then I get home, which is fine, and I get like an hour with the kids. Then they go to bed. So I don't get to see them all day either, except on the other part of the day. So I go to work, I come home, I'm home from work more days than not, and they don't even know I've left the house. They're still asleep. So by the time I get home, I'm the one waking everybody up. So I get them off to school. I can get their lunches. I can get I can go to their schools to volunteer. I can do field trips. I can coach their teams. It's a great parent schedule. Now, you got to get over getting up at 2:30 in the morning because that sucks. There's no way around that. And you go to bed early. I miss a lot of, when the Patriots are night games, I'm out. I can't watch those.
You're not missing much, but I know what you mean.
No, but in general, this is a great schedule if you can handle. And I happen to be one of those obnoxious morning people that loves the mornings. I wake up and I'm good. I've never once, Randy, hit a snooze button on an alarm. I don't even know where it is. When my goes off, I'm up. I'm out. Boom, shower, get ready, out the door. And I'm one of those happy, good morning people. So it's a perfect schedule for me, and I'm very, very lucky that this job opened up.
So do you see this as a good way to finish up your career? Is it like, do you have any plans for the future, goals? Like, what's your goal?
I mean, I've got 8 children, so my goal is to someday not work. That's not going to happen. I'm going to die on TV. So I'll be 107. They'll be wheeling, hey, time for the news. No, I mean, no, there's no other job. Like when Pat Callahan, the greatest, news broadcaster our state's ever seen, just retired last Friday at the point of this recording here. And when he first told us he was going to be retiring, so we've obviously known for a while, people are like, oh, you're going to go for the 6 o'clock news? No. That's just not me. Like Pat Callahan is the 6 o'clock news, right? He's a newsman who can give you the news 6 to 6:30. And, and I don't want to sell myself short. I feel like I'm getting better at that. And I can certainly do the news, but I need to have some time to have some fun and work some chat and make people smile in the morning, get their day started. Life is hard. The news is hard. And, the morning show gives you the ability to make people smile, start their day with a laugh, find out what's going on for sure. We're going to do the news. It's not a comedy hour. We do the news and, but you can do it and find openings in that 2.5 hour window to put a smile on someone's face. The 6 o'clock PM news doesn't give you that opportunity. I would not be good at that.
Yeah. Now, listening to you talk about it, it sounds like the morning is the perfect spot for you. Obviously, they have to fill Pat's spot. I don't know if that's actually been announced or not, but that's a coveted spot, so I'm sure they're going to do it with care. Is it like a platoon type scenario
no,
now?
We already hired a kid who was with us a while ago, left to go to Rhode Island for a bunch of years, and now he's come back. His name is Brian Yacono. Yeah, he's 11.
Yeah, I remember him.
He's from Turner and went to Levitt High School, as did Amanda Hill. So we have 2 Levitt grads that are both our 6 o'clock anchors now. So which is cool. They went to high school together a couple years apart. A couple Mainers like me, doing the news, and that's so cool. Those two. That's our 6 o'clock team. Amanda with Brian and Keith Carson. And then with Pat leaving, and this is funny to say because I still feel like one of the kids at the station. But now Sharon and I are numbers 2 and 3 in longevity at that station. And when do we become?
Who's number 1?
Rob.
Who's number 1?
Yeah, Rob
really?
is the longest tenured anchor. Don Kerrigan is our longest tenured on-air person. He doesn't anchor, but so if you count Don, which you certainly have to because he's a Hall of Fame legend. So Don and Rob would be 1 and 2, and then Sharon and I would be, I guess, 3 and 4 in that order. So it's just crazy because I used to be one of the kids. I was 25th on the depth chart, and now being in the top 4 of who've been people come up to me for advice, and I'm working with kids who are younger than my own kids, and that's.
It's so funny. I saw some. I've just noticed a lot of stuff you've been posting lately with Pat's retirement. And you have some old pictures, and it seems like everyone in the station goes back so far. I don't know if that's unique to the station. I'm sure other channels have some longevity, but it just seemed like there were so many key pieces that had been there for so long.
It's extremely unique, and I have worked in other markets, and I certainly know enough people in this business all across the country from all bunch of markets. It's not normal to have the same people at the same station for this long. When we had Pat and Cindy Williams and Bruce Glazier and Joe Cupo, they were together on the 6 o'clock news for just under 30 years. Yeah. There had never been a 4-person anchor team in the country that had been together that long. So our station specifically is a place where people never leave. It's been a great place to work. It's a station I grew up watching as a kid, and it's got that legacy tradition where people, even if they do leave, they come back. Keith left. He went to the Weather Channel, making way.
I remember when he
made way.
The Weather Channel. It's actually funny that I'm talking about this. Like, I actually know any of these people outside of you, and it's like I don't. But TV personalities, you kind of get a feel for that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and
remember that.
And he made way more money, but decided to come back to Portland, Maine. Todd Gardner went to Boston, and he's like, you know what? I'm making way more money than in Portland, Maine, but just wanted to come back to Maine. I could go down the list of people who've left and then come back, and then there's a bunch of us that have never left. So it goes both ways.
Yeah, that's very cool. Listen. I don't want to keep you much longer. I feel like there's a million things that I want to talk about, but why don't we just call it good there? I can hear the kids in the background, and we'll have to do it again sometime. Well, listen,
I want to do one just about high school sports because, especially in your neck of the woods. I got so many stories about the great late Mike Landry, Doug Wilson, one of my heroes, Brian Curett, one of my favorite people on earth. All the kids you played with. I got super fast. It was my birthday. I was at Old Orchard Beach just this past summer. It was on my birthday. I'm having a blast. Got a bunch of friends down there. We're having a great time. There's like 20 of us down the beach. All my kids, my wife, my family. And I'm just talking to this guy, and we're just hitting it off great. And we're having this. He happened to be next to me, and we're talking, and we're getting through, and it's hot, and it was need a lot of liquids to stay hydrated, if you know what I'm saying. So this guy next to me, and I'm like, God, you look so familiar. I'm like, have I met you before? He's like, yeah, probably. I go, what's your name? He's like, Bobby. I go, Bobby, where are you from, Bobby? He's like, I'm from Biddeford. I go, shut up. You're Bobby Parisian. He goes, I am.
Bob was in a Orchard? That's so funny. I got to get Bob on the podcast. He's a legend.
I started screaming, and then everybody thought, they're like, who's this guy? And I'm like, Bobby freaking Parisian. You know who this is? And so there's so many great stories and so many great high school athletes that been blessed to cover in our state that I, to this day, still keep in touch with. Nick Cantor Medley, met that kid when he was 12 years old.
I want to have him on the pod too. She's going to make a connection for me. But yeah, it's amazing to see. There's been a lot of people in high school sports in Maine that have gone different places that you probably wouldn't
I want to do
expect
another one of these high school sports only because we're such a small state that when you're a high school star in our state, it means more than if you're from a different state. If you're a star high school athlete in Texas, you're one of thousands, right? If you're a star high school athlete in Maine, everybody knows who you are. That's special and shouldn't be taken lightly. So we need to do a high school one only, and I won't talk about Patriots or anything else. We'll do that.
You got it. It's a deal. I appreciate you being
Happy
on.
holidays
We'll be in touch.
to you and all your listeners and watchers, and everybody stay safe out there and be good.
Thanks, bud. We'll be in touch. Talk soon.